All right, I'm John Livy, your host of Serious and Silliness Outcast, and I'm going to report probably some information that you already know, but I also have some kind of theory as to maybe why this is happening. Okay, so if you guys don't know, this has been reported by the Sit Down with Jeff Nadu and Scott Bernstein on Original Gangsters podcast, both great podcasts. I've had both of them on my show, both great guys. Two mafia social clubs were held up by gunpoint and stuck up and robbed uh, recently. One was Memorial Day weekend, and the other one was 5 days later. Okay, so let's get to the first one. First one that happened on Memorial Day weekend was a Bonanno social club, which was in the Bronx and the Pelham Bay section of the Bronx. Okay, supposedly they had robbed jewelry from who was there, watches, and over six figures, or over $100,000 worth of cash. Some people say that this money is tribute to the boss of the family, which is Michael Mancuso. Some people say this money is supposed to go to somebody that's coming out of prison that belongs to this organization. And that happens. They come out, they give the money, they either put the money on the street or they invest it, and everybody starts making money, right? Whoever loans them gets, you know, gets interest, and then he makes money in whatever he invests, or loaning his own money, or starting his own sporting book, or whatever the case may be. Okay, this is very common for when people these guys come out of jail. Now, what makes this significant is who was in the club. It wasn't like these were like a Bonanno associates that were just, trying to like, make a buck or have a card game. The number three guy from the Bonanno crime family was there in the club, Ernie Aiello. Okay, and he is reported to be the consigliere of this group. The boss of Bonanno crime family is Michael Mancuso, and the underboss is Bruno Indelicato. Uh, those two were not in the club. Who else was in the club was Johnny Joe Spirito and his son Johnny Joe Jr. These two were also heavyweights in the Bonanno crime family. Um, so it wasn't like low level guys were robbed. These were, heavy hitters in this family that were robbed. Okay. And Ernie Aiello has a reputation of being, you know, he'll handle his business in the street. He has a reputation of being a street tough dude. Okay. Some people believe that this was an inside job. Some people believe that it might have been Albanians that they had done, work with before. But from what I understand, whoever did this knew the club and came in masked, four guys, masks, and stuck it up for what they had there. Now, this is significant. This is a lot of money, and they were like, this was a club with some heavy hitters in it from the Bonanno crime family. Okay. Now, let's move on to the next one. I think only 5 days later, a Gambino club was hit in Queens in Howard Beach at 133rd Street and Cross Bay Boulevard. There is a restaurant, uh, cafe there, and in the back, they have card games. And the card games are run by Blaze Carrazzo. And this is significant because Blaze Carrazzo is the brother of Nicky Carrazzo, who is a major player in the Gambino crime family. Nicky Carrazzo has been around a long time. He was acting boss at one point. He was with John Gotti. He has didn't done prison time. So I don't know how much they got off with, and we don't know if this is a coincidence or if this was planned that we are going to hit one week and the other one the next week. Okay, and again, this is the younger brother of Nicky Carrazzo, who today reports show that Nicky Carrazzo is the underboss of the Gambino crime family, and reports show that Gene Gotti is the boss of the Gambino crime family. And the Gambino crime family seems to be, along with the Genovese crime family, probably the most significant, the most put together, the most money making family out of the five, right? Gambino and Genovese are very seems to be today the top tier out of the five. All right. So without it is a strong possibility that Gene Gotti and Nicky Carrazzo took control of this family because for a long time, for about the last decade, people thought that the Cherry Hill Gambinos or the Sicilian faction of the Gambino crime family ran it, and the guy's name was Lorenzo Menino. Well, Jeff Nadeau reported that that is not true. Jeff Nadeau is obviously sit down. That is not true. That Gene Gotti is actually the boss now, and Nicky Carrazzo is the underboss. Okay. Nicky Carrazzo's house was vandalized over the winter. I think somebody threw a brick through his window, and so on and so forth. Now, uh, you guys that follow Cosa Nostra News probably already know this. But here's the thing, okay? I've interviewed plenty on my channel. I've interviewed plenty of guys, from John Elite to Larry Mazza to Anthony Ruggiano Jr. to you name it, okay? All the guys that are within social media and do interviews, I pretty much have had on, with the exception of very few. And they've all basically have told me that the mafia today is trying to avoid violence as much as possible. So, for example, if you have a card game and you want to work, you know, you want to play on credit, which is possible, you'll get credit. But if you don't pay it back, instead of beating you down in the middle of the street, they just cut you off, and you cannot play in any card game that they are associated with until you pay it back. There is, from what I understand, an unspoken law of no kills, no more murders. Because when you murder and you go to jail and they hit you with a life sentence, that's when guys flip. Now, the bad side to this is if there are guys uh, that don't care about that and they know that odds are there's not going to be any consequences, well, why wouldn't I stick those places up? Why wouldn't I, if I know that there is going to be $100,000 in cash in a mafia social club, and I am a street guy or a street kid, when I say kid, in his 20s, or I'm Albanian and I've done work with these guys before, and I know that odds are there's not going to be any consequences, why wouldn't I? Of course I would. These kind of things have happened in the past plenty of times, like really, like plenty of times. There's cowboys that want to go out and they, make a name for themselves, or they just fucking want money, or they're, local drug addicts that do things like this. But there were consequences, and the consequences were usually death, which kept everybody in order. Fear kept everybody in order. And it doesn't seem like, to me, that the Italians are as feared as they once were if they're getting stuck up by gunpoint without any consequences. Now, it's too early to say that there are no consequences, but here's the thing. Gene Gotti is in his 80s. Nicky Carrazzo is also very old. Bruno and Delicato and Michael Mancuso are very old. Do you think they want to go back to jail? Maybe Ernie Aiello is in his 40s. Maybe he says, no, we got to do something. But do you think that the elder statesmen that are running things want to go back to jail and die in prison when they're on the street? I said definitely not. But then if they don't retaliate, then things like this are just going to continue to happen. So I ask you, and I want your opinion. Comment. Do the Italians have any street cred anymore? Do other organizations fear them anymore? Or are they just basically a shell of what they used to be? I'm not saying that they don't make money. They're not able to make good money. They're not able to hustle and do what they need to do. But without fear and without retaliation and without violence, how are you going to keep everybody in check? It's food for thought. Well, only time will tell. We will see what happens. Now, I do know this. I do know police were called. I do know that no police were called, rather, especially at the Bonanno club. I know that for a fact. Jeff Nadeau actually said that no police were called. I don't believe any police were called in the Gambino one either. I mean, that would be pretty silly if you're doing something illegal and you get stuck up and no police were called. And that's another thing. If they know no police are going to get called and they know there's not going to be any violent consequence, seems to me like the Italians are targets. The elderly guys that are on the street now, I doubt they want to go back to jail. Maybe something will happen. Maybe there will be some kind of retaliation. We'll see. I don't know. But let me know what you guys think, okay? This is just the feeling I get. Now, if you guys watch my channel, you know that I grew up around this. I grew up in Bensonhurst. Then I lived in Staten Island, okay? My father was heavily involved. I've talked to Larry Mazur about this. I've seen it, and I've also seen how it has become this organization has become less and less and less and smaller and smaller and smaller. And they basically had to adapt or they were going to die completely. Too many guys were flipping. Too many guys were putting people away for life. So they had to adjust. And one of those adjustments was no more violence, no more murders. You guys let me know. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and tell everybody about my channel. And go back and watch some of the great interviews. I mean, I did one with Larry Mazza recently about how Mark Wahlberg is going to be playing Greg Scarpa in a movie. I had Scott Bernstein on. We talked about the Hells Angels. We talked about Cosa Nostra. I've had Tommy Guns from the Chingalings on. You name it. It has been great interviews. I've had some adult film stars. I try to give you as great content as I possibly can. But until then, I am out. Later. Peace.